Okay, is the screen visible to you people?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, good morning everyone and welcome back to the background study to the literature. So today we are going to study the further part, and that is tragicomedy. Yesterday we have studied comedy and tragedy, pure comedy, tragedy, and then romantic comedy and romantic tragedy. And today the topic is tragicomedy. So here, what is tragicomedy? It is half tragedy and half comedy. Away from tragedy having comic relief or comedy having tragic environment. You see, when there is the pure tragedy was being performed on stage. So in between, there was a tradition to introduce certain interlude, and interlude serves a purpose of comic relief. So you see, although that interlude is not the part of, you say, drama, yet dramatists need felt of introducing certain comic relief to the audiences. So in that case, you see, towards the 15th, 16th century or 17th century, you see, in England, especially in Elizabethan theatre, romantic drama was introduced by some writers like Charles Marlowe, Christopher Marlowe, Shakespeare, Ben Jonson, and many contemporary writers. And here, a part of comic relief was introduced in the drama itself as a part of the plot. At the same time, you see, in comedy also, a tragic environment was introduced somewhere, and sometimes, especially in the beginning itself. So we see the beginning of comedy, Shakespearean comedy, like As You Like It, begins with a tragic note, or Merchant of Venice. It becomes tragic comedy because it begins with a tragic environment, where Antonio is encircled with some misfortune situation, and then Shylock drag him to the court, demanding a pound of flesh from him. So in this way, a tragic atmosphere begins with the comedy. The comic relief serves the purpose of intensifying the tragic element in the content. Now, when we talk about tragedy and comic relief element in it, so it intensifies the tragic element in the context. So you see in drama like Hamlet. So in Hamlet, till the Act 3, some character like you see the Polonius was killed at the hand of Hamlet. and then his daughter and Hamlet's girlfriend, Ophelia, she drowns herself. So in this way, some important characters have killed in the drama, and her dead body was taken to the graveyard for burying in the tomb. But then Hamlet reached there, and he was talking with the grave diggers, and that grave diggers serves somehow I mean, act like some, you say, comic figures, and interaction with Hamlet turn into a small comedy. But you see, this little comic relief occurs at Gravedigger scene. Is a small light period in the drama, and later on, you see, towards the end of the drama, we were, ready to, receive some great tragic incidences further. So you see, Gravedigger scene evoke laughter, but adds queer fancies to the tragic theme. So here you see, you burst into laughter, but very soon, it gives you a clue that something is going to happen terribly. Okay. Now, in case of comedy, a comedy with a tragic background is an effective one. Like some comedies begins with some tragic note, and then all the character progressing further to resolve the problem initiated in the beginning. So such background in the beginning, and then we are progressing towards some light movement. It becomes effective. The wrong done to the chief character in the beginning, but towards the end, it is happier, like in As You Like It and Much Ado About Nothing. So here you see both this drama begins with a tragic note, but towards the end, we see it's a happier end. So tragicomedy, on the other hand, is a complete tragedy up to a certain point and complete tragedy thereafter. Okay, so here you see tragicomedy. In case of tragicomedy, it is completely a tragedy up to a certain point, and then there is a comedy completely thereafter. In case of structure, you see, rising of action will be the tragedy, and from climax onward, that will be a falling action. So falling action will be a comedy. A plot in tragicomedy is altogether different from comedy and tragedy. Okay, so here you see the structure of drama, especially selection of events, selection of incidences arranged in plot in such a way that it will give you the view of the tragicomedy. Characters undergo transformation, sometimes natural, sometimes forced. So here you see characters introduced in the drama undergo a rigorous change. So what they are in the beginning when they are introduced, so towards the end of a drama, they are changed somehow. So in case you see this even happen in Shakespearean comedy as well. Then the supernatural and pastoral situation adopted. So in tragicomedy, a supernatural element has been introduced, or pastoral situation has been adopted. So pastoral situation means situation will turn into, you say, forest, where shepherd and shepherdess, okay, will be a part of the drama. The general atmosphere is of fantasy or a kind of a dramatic romance. So here you see the entire drama, okay, from beginning till end, especially towards the comic, you say, part, the atmosphere turned into fantasy or a kind of a dramatic romance. So now, when we go back to the origin history of tragedy comedy, it was not existed in ancient Greece. So in the previous part, when we studied tragedy, pure tragedy and pure comedy, we have just understood that it was not existent in Greece. But Latin comic dramatists, Plautus attempted tragico-commedia, but it was not deliberately attempted. So Plautus was the first who accidentally attempted tragico-commedia, where he, intermingles tragic and comic elements in one drama. The English form arose in time of James I under Italian and Spanish influence as English characteristics of tragicomedy. So James I ascended the throne after Queen Elizabeth, and you see during that period, Italian influence, especially adaptation of pastoral elements, was taken, and then Spanish influences where romantic intrigue, a small plot in a romantic way, was introduced in tragicomedy. So, Beaumont and Fletcher's A King and No King appears as tragicomedy. So, Beaumont and Fletcher were the dramatists of the time during the period James I. Okay, they comes up with the drama A King and No King appears as tragicomedy. But later on, we see Shakespeare became master of it because Shakespeare's dramas like you say Tempest and some more drama like Merchant and Venice. So they are quite popular, become so popular because life is not always tragedy and it's not always comedy, but it's a tragic comedy. So this is what the concept Shakespeare seems adopted for his drama. But you see, after the closure of theatre in 1642 onwards, tragicomedy disappeared from theatre due to later experiments like comedy of manners and sentimental comedy. So you see, in the further time, after John Dryden initiated his dramatic ventures, so in his time, and then Oliver Goldsmith, like writers, they take up the drama as art. So comedy of manners and sentimental comedies were became popular form, and because of that, tragicomedy, which was practiced by Shakespeare, it was gone by. So in case of comedy of manners and sentimental comedies, some tragic elements are woven in such a way that it gives you effect of tragicomedy. But here you see tragicomedy was ruled out by some writers because these writers are follower of classical norms, okay, as given by Aristotle. So Philip Sidney says, neither the admiration nor the condemnation. So here he says he is not admiring it nor condemning it. Means he is in between. So obviously, Philip Sidney is not in favor of tragicomedy. Milton condemns it. He says, counted absurd and brought it without discretion corruptly to gratify people. So here you see the drama, according to Milton, was made for gratifying people. So he purposefully used the gratify word, and to use such word is derogatory. So obviously Milton found it, not suitable. He is not satisfied with this form because he follows pure tragedy and pure comedy concept. Now, Joseph Addison is one who doesn't support it. He maintained one of the most monstrous invention surely be allowed upon the stage, which pretends only to be the mirror of life. So here in a severe word, he maintained that tragicomedy is one of the monstrous invention. So obviously, he is also not in favor of. So here, these three writers, Philip Sidney, Milton, Addison, so these are all the follower of Aristotle. But then tragicomedy has been appreciated by some writers like John Dryden. Okay, John Dryden came in the Restoration period. He maintains to the honor of our nation that we have invented, increased, and perfected. So here he has great appreciation for Shakespeare and contemporary dramatists, those who have introduced tragicomedy. And here he give credit to the country for invention, increased, and perfecting the genre. Then Samuel Johnson, he maintains, since it is not only common but perpetual in world may, So here you see the world has a perpetual, you say, way of progress. Okay, and in perpetual way of progress, we always pass through ups and downs. Okay, so ups and downs is a part of a life. So tragedy and comedy is a part of life, and this is the reason why Johnson accepted it. Then another writer is Alardis Nicole. He says that tears and laughter lie in close proximity. So you see, you laugh and sometimes you cry. So these two emotions live side by side. Okay, in a same proximity, in a close proximity. And this is the reason why tragicomedy is quite acceptable. Now, finally, we can maintain the ultimate test of all art is aesthetic pleasure. It evokes, and tragicomedy meets this test in its own way. So you see, whatever may be the art, it might be, you say, painting, it might be any sculpture, music. It's, you say, ultimate aim is aesthetic pleasure. Okay, so gain aesthetic pleasure. Okay, the beauty of drama, and that you see found with tragicomedy. It evokes. Now the next topic is farce and comedy. Okay, farce and comedy. So here, farce is the exaggerated form of the comedy. Okay, now here we till now we understood comedy, but again, farce is the exaggerated form of comedy. It is not exactly follow real life. Okay, in real life, some comic events has happened, but it is something more of that. The aim of farce is to provoke laughter by employing absurd characters, situation, and dialogue. So here you see writers do introduce some absurd characters. They are not lifelike, they are something more colored with some awkward costume, and they are in some awkward situation. Such situation, something exaggerated, and dialogue, okay, more than routine. So it belongs to nonsense, where characters are free from care and restraint. So the farce, the genre, or we can say this type, belongs to the something nonsense, foolish. Okay, so here you see these characters behave something careless and free, and behave you say something foolish. The leading characters are shown running away from angry wife or husband and creditor. So always the characters in the past, they are like dominated by the wives, and they wanted to escape from the situation. So in this way, the person, okay, who is running away from his angry wife could be the comic part of the drama farce. Or creditors, like sometimes you see you take loan, but you do not repay it, and then creditors come to your door and you try to escape from the situation. So in this way, such situation, such incidences do invoke laughter. They draw serious and respectable person into the most undignified position. So you see sometimes in the outer world, the husband has got a respect, but in home, he is dominated by his wife. On the other hand, a person who seems to be a very punctual, seems to be leading very good life, but on the other, he is debunking, or he is not paying the debts. So in this way, these people are, you say, dignified, okay, but living into undignified positions, involving them into certain amount of horseplay, a love affair to create confusion, no harm comes to any. And then situation like love affairs, then horseplay. Now these are some situations where people are, revolved around certain confused state of mind. But here you see no harm come to anyone. Everyone else escape any difficulties in their life. Now word farce came from Latin word meaning to stuff. Okay, to stuff means to stuff, like we stuff something into sandwich. Okay, so this way, farce is stuffed into drama. Earlier courses were introduced, earlier farces were introduced as the comic interludes in between a drama. Okay, so while studying Greek drama, we uh, referred this idea as to in between a drama in interludes, okay, were introduced, and sometimes these interludes were the farce. Some element of farce were introduced by Shakespeare in his dramas like Midsummer Night's Dream and Merry Wives of Windsor. So these are the two drama quite popular where Shakespeare himself introduced farce. Farce came into vogue towards the end of 17th century with the Duke of Buckingham delighted London with the rehearsal. Okay, then declined with the introduction of sentimental comedy, recovered with anti-sentimental movement of Goldsmith and Sheridan. So this is the way. This is the way you see farce were introduced in English drama. Now here, these are few successful Victorian farce. The writer is Charles Hawtrey, and his drama was The Private Secretary. The title itself, you see, gives you the idea of farce, private secretary. Then Brandon Thomas. Here, Brandon Thomas is Charlie's aunt. Okay, now here you see, Charlie's aunt is a drama. You see, inspire Marathi drama like Muruchi Maushi. It was a quite famous comedy. You say popular in the last decade, and thousands of, I mean, its shows were done in the country. So many of Marathi dramas are somehow, you say, comic dramas are taking inspiration from English farce. And here, elements of farce in modern writers' works, like G.B. Shaw's Arms and the Man, You Never Can Tell, Androcle and Lion. These are the three dramas where G.B. Shaw himself took elements of farce. Now, the opposite of farce is melodrama and tragedy. Okay, now here, farce is the exaggerated form of comedy. Certainly, melodrama is exaggerated form of tragedy. So, melodrama was the degraded form of tragedy, we can say that. Degraded, because in melodrama, more physical actions has been introduced. Presently, melodrama is reserved for crudely sensational type of play, relying on violent physical actions. So you see, in tragedy, obviously there are tragic incidences are happening, murders, some plots, and some we say assaults has been introduced. But here in melodrama, the intensity of such physical assaults is quite high. Its characters are mere puppets in extravagant stories of crime, revenge, and retribution. Evil of drinks, gambling, lost will, missing hair. So these are the situation where, okay, where, I mean, misfortune and some physical actions is involved. So crime, revenge, retribution, these are some horrible events where people engage in some physical, you say, assault on each other, and some murder and some tragic incidences do happen. So a melodrama on stage is usually accompanied by dramatic and suggestive music. So to heighten the tension for the audiences, the music has been accompanied. Very, like you see, sometimes you watch a popular movie and certain physical assault is being you say presented on the in the scene, so it is comes up with a very severe kind of a music. So it was itself introduced in the drama itself. So melodramatic elements could be seen in the plays of Thomas Kit's Spanish tragedy and Webster's Duchess of Malfi. So you see, in the English theatre of Elizabethan time, these two dramas were quite popular. I taken as the example of the melodrama. and melodrama were quite popular and prominent during 18th century. Okay, now I'm taking a you say extract from Encyclopedia Britannica. It maintains the melodramatic stage play is generally regarded as having developed in France as a result of impact of Jean-Jacques Rousseau's Pygmalion. So Rousseau wrote Pygmalion in the year 1762 and performed in 1770. So this was the first melodrama which adopted further. So here you see on a society torn by violent political and social upheaval and exposed to the influences of the English Gothic novel of Sturm and Drang and Romanticism from Germany. So you see this melodrama, which was initiated in you say France, which was undergo some you say influences like English Gothic novel and of Sturm and Drang, like Storm and Stress, and obviously Romanticism for Germany. In this way, some elements come together to give a robust form or some terrible form to this type. The pioneer and the prime exponent of 18th century French melodrama, with its music, singing, and spectacular effect, was Gilbert de Pixécourt. We need to remember this name, Gilbert de Pixécourt, who introduced this drama, and while introducing it, he, imbibed this type with music, singing, and spectacular effect. His Coelina o L'Enfant de Mystery was written in the year 1800, was translated as A Tale of Mystery, published in 1802 by Thomas Halcott and established a new genre in England. So in this way, A Tale of Mystery became, you say, a subgenre of drama in the form of melodrama and introduced in England. So here some dramas like Dion Boucicault's The Octoroon, published in 1859, and The Colin Bawn. So these are the two important drama taken as the melodrama. More sensational were The Poor New York, 1857, London by Night, 1844, and Under the Gaslight. You see, you're simply focusing on the title, and title itself suggests you something horrible incidents is, pointed out. The theatrical melodrama declined in the popularity with the growing sophistication of the theater in the early 20th century. So by the beginning of 20th century, you see the melodrama was declined because of popularity with the growing sophistication. So theater becomes sophisticated and people's expectations are something different. Okay, they don't want continuous bombardment with the tragic element, but people wanted some light element in the drama. So you see, people, were into different aspect of drama, and this is the reason why further you see it declined. Next topic to study is the mask. A kind of a festive courtly entertainment. Okay, like you see sometimes in a royal family, some marriage or some celebration is organized. So during such festivities, farce has been introduced. And this is a very costly affair. Farce is a very costly affair. So farce were popular during 16th and 17th century, obviously during the time of Shakespeare himself. And the mask developed from intermedii and from mystery plays. So intermedii was the form, it was, the predecessor of drama. On mystery plays, you see, introduced before the drama, carrying some biblical, you say, events. A dramatic entertainment in which plot, character, and even to a great extent dialogue are subordinated on one hand to spectacular illustration, on the other to musical accompaniment. So Sainsbury maintained this to define what is the mask. So here you see on stage the spectacular effect. Okay, and musical accompaniment. That is the most important focus point. So here you see when audience is watching, they are mesmerized with the stage situation. Beautiful music, people are dangling here and there, they are dancing. And on the other hand, the heavy costume, light situation. So everything else is there to mesmerize you. So here, the plot, character, and dialogues are subordinated. So it was medley of a music, elaborate scenic effect, and dancing woven around the fairy tale. So the plot of a drama is taken or based on some fairy tale, and it comes up with a scenic effect, dances, songs again and again. So it is imbibed with more songs of dance. Now, when we take a definition from the Encyclopedia Britannica, it says mask, also spelled mask, festival or entertainment in which disguised participants offer gifts to their host and then join together for a ceremonial dance. Okay. So here you see a company of actors. They came to stage, and before that they give a greetings to the host, and they then they started, you say, their act. A typical mask consisted of a band of costume and masked person of same sex who, accompanied by torchbearers, arrived at a social gathering to dance and converse with the guest. So sometimes masks were performed by the male characters in those days. You know, so they arrived in a heavy costume and wearing a mask on their face, concealing their identity. Sometimes these characters may, you say, appear as women, okay, but they are male. So this is the reason why you see they wear mask over their face. Sometimes they, I mean, give their different, you say, outlook. They want to appear differently. They want to appear as a god, demigods, like that. And this is the reason why mask was important. And because they were wearing mask, the type was identified as a mask. The mask developed into a splendid modern ballet with additional features like dance and speeches. So ballet, ballet is a, I mean, event where girls and boys come together in a social gathering and dance, a ball dance has been introduced. So this ball is a culture of Europe. Okay. So whenever there is a small gathering with the accompaniment of music, you say young men and women, they come together and dance to celebrate the event. So this form, I mean, becomes mature during the period of James I. Now we need to go through some features. So characters are deities from classical mythology. So in case of this type, this mask, characters are taken from some mythology. And number of characters are restricted to 6. So only 6 characters will be appear on stage. Now, why 6? There are certain reasons to it, but more I see it is economical, because more of the characters has been introduced. It will be something a costly affair. And then scenes are laid in Olympus, Arcadia, and Fortune Isles. So these are the mythological places and dwelling places for deities and gods. Okay, so some incidences or some stories are related to these 3 important mythological places. And then dances at appropriate places. So time to time you see characters come together and they started dancing with the accompaniment of music. And then elaborate scenery and costume. Okay, so to give the outlook of Olympus, so entire stage will be converted into that particular part of Olympus. So because of that, it becomes a costly affair. And then costumes of deities, like some god is appearing. So obviously, they'll be having that costly costume. God, goddesses, then deities, different deities are there. So in this way, it itself, I mean, take, you say, the heavy economy into it. A comic interlude in between called anti-mask is introduced. Okay, so in between, anti-mask has been introduced where a comedy has been introduced. The length of this drama is like a full act of a play. Now, the drama in the further century declined. Now, why? We need to understand its reason. Number one, it was costly from the entertainment designed for courts or the festive occasion. So it was not I mean, it was not maintained for individual, but it was designed for courts and festive occasion so that people may afford it. Sometimes there is celebration of a marriage in a big family. So even in some royal family, okay, they can afford such you say uh, drama or dramatic representation. In case of Shakespearean drama, Tempest, a marriage of Ferdinand and Miranda, celebrated with the mosque. The patronage of James I helped it to grow, but after his death in 1625 onwards, getting no sponsors. So the main sponsors of Masque was James I, but later no, I mean a royal family member came forward in support of this, and this was also a reason why it was declined. The Triumph of Peace by Shirley was produced at a cost of £21,000, which was increased later with elaborate dramatic effects. So you can imagine 17th century, you can imagine in the beginning of 17th century, and the drama, The Triumph of Peace, involves £21,000. Okay, so the present day cost may be in millions, you know. Therefore, it becomes the glory of a short period. So, for a short period, mass become popular, but it was declined because of a heavy economy is involved in it. The earliest example of masque is the Hall's Chronicle, published in 1512. And then Ben Jonson is the supreme master of the English masque. From the literary point of view, the most famous masque is Milton's Comus. Milton was also the practitioner of this type, and he wrote Comus in the year 1634, and that was quite popular. Okay, so uh, these are some types we have studied so far. If you have any question or query, you can ask me on this. Do you have any query, Rakesh, Poonam? Any query do you have?
I know, sir.
Okay, so I'm closing session here, and in the next lecture we will begin one act play. Okay, so tomorrow is important day of this Diwali festival. So we will be having off tomorrow, and perhaps I'll be inviting you to back to my lecture on day after tomorrow. Is that okay to you people?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
परसों चलेगा?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
टाइमिंग मॉर्निंग कोई ठीक है? अभी तुम लोग एक दो स्क्रीनशॉट लेकर रखो, ग्रुप में डालो. और इमेज के साथ डालना, ठीक है, इमेज भी चाहिए।